Solemn day in D.C. history. On this day in 1982, two tragedies occurred just hours apart, forever changing transportation policies across the district. First, Air Florida Flight 90 crashed into the 14th Street Bridge, killing 78 people.
Later that same day, another disaster unfolded on the ground when a metro train derailed in downtown D.C., killing three others. The chilling images from that day are forever etched into the city's memory, but none as vividly as it is for the emergency response teams who answered the calls that ultimately saved lives. This Thursday, the National Law Enforcement Museum is hosting a special roundtable discussion and book signing examining that day. And joining us this morning is one of the speakers at that event, Stephen Sauter, who was working for DC's 911 dispatch that day when those calls started to come in. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. And first thing we want to do is take us back through your memory of those initial calls on January 13, 1982, and what unfolded that day.
Well, good morning to both of you, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. Interesting that an event that was so wide known, so widely interested in, was only reported by one telephone call. Because remember that back in 1982, there were no cell phones. And only those people that had a need and, quite frankly, could afford had something known as a mobile telephone. And a mobile telephone fit in the trunk of your car and probably was the size of a small refrigerator. And then up at your dashboard of the car was a handset, a traditional telephone handset, like many of us grew up with. And when the person with that mobile telephone on the 14th Street Bridge, one of the many cars that were caught in traffic, saw this event happen, they used their mobile telephone and they called the mobile telephone operator. The mobile telephone operator then called District of Columbia 911, and then it began to unfold. But one phone call reported that major incident. Think if this happened today, there would have been thousands and thousands of 911 calls made reporting the same event. So that shows you how far we have come in the course of the 44 years since Air Florida crashed on January 13th, 1982.
It's incredible to hear that perspective, right, and context there. I'm curious, when it comes to the Air Florida crash, 4 passengers and 1 flight attendant survived. Channel 9 was the first to broadcast their incredible rescues to the whole world, and we have team members working behind the scenes who lived it, who covered it. What went well that day just to make those rescues possible, in your opinion?
Well, quite frankly, very little went well that day. It was an event unprecedented in certainly the Washington, D.C. area, and I would venture to say almost any place in the world where 2 events should occur at the same time, separated by 30 minutes and 1 mile apart, in a blazing blizzard that already had dumped probably a foot of snow on Washington Street, in the middle of rush hour traffic, where traffic is back to back, bumper to bumper for as long as the eye could see. And that could have been simply 4 cars ahead of you because the snow was falling so greatly. So those circumstances really created a horrific scene. And when the first responders, as we call them today, commonly referred to as fire rescue, law enforcement, arrived on the scene, they were confronted with this horrific scene, which is etched in all of our minds, as we see ice, as we see people frantically trying to get out to the few survivors that were in the water. We see the infamous U.S. Park Police helicopter Eagle One doing that extraordinarily dangerous, heroic actions of literally landing the helicopter on the surface of the water and then pulling people to the helicopter in an attempt to get them into the helicopter. These are images that are etched in my mind and anyone else's mind that had anything to do with that event. But the heroics that were expended, even though many of them were without success, must always be appreciated. But for the 81 souls that ended up dying between the crash of Air Florida, whether they be on the bridge, whether they be on the plane, or whether they be a half hour later in the metro tunnel beneath the mall, those 81 souls gave their lives in a very, very horrific way. But I would hasten to say that the lessons learned and the changes that flowed from that horrific event were unlike anything that I've seen in my professional career, and the improvements that were made to the way that public safety responds to events today, whether they be the routine everyday event that we see apparatus and police cars going to as we travel around, or whether they be something as horrific as this. If you just look back a little more than a year ago to January 29th of 2025, when the airplane and the helicopter crashed into the Potomac River, not far away from where Air Florida crashed, the difference in the way that event was handled and responded to, and the communications that were able to be achieved between first responders in one jurisdiction and another jurisdiction, and how quickly the District of Columbia Fire Department got there. They were in the water with divers within 5 minutes of when the plane went down. These are testament to the improvements that were made in the last 44 years since Air Florida and the Metro crash occurred.
Wow, that's fascinating there. And we know the job that you guys do is tremendous, because it does, on a regular basis, save so many lives, because people are calling, looking for answers and looking for help. But there is a shortage of 911 operators. If there's someone who's thinking about this career, but maybe a little bit hesitant about what's at stake here, what would you say to them to encourage them to actually go ahead and get involved? Because it does actually make a difference, a huge difference.
The latter part of my extensive 911 career were spent struggling with this very issue. It is traditionally a position that unfortunately is not paid the wage that it is deserving of. And it is a position that, quite frankly, is not for everybody. But for those few that it may be for, it can be for them the most satisfying, rewarding experience of an entire lifetime. A 911 person will save and deal and interact with the public more in one 8, 10, or 12-hour shift than most other first responders would do in a month. It's just the nature of the way in which public safety works. But it is an extraordinarily important job. I would urge anyone that is interested in serving the public and wanting to feel at the end of any tour of duty that they have truly made a difference. 911 is something that they should certainly look to. It is the most defining thing in my entire public safety career, and I have worked it for many years in many different positions. But 911 is exactly what it is: America's go-to number,
You
the
know,
most recognized number in the United States of America.
you encounter people on the worst day, the worst moments of their life, right? And so incredible